Practicing comping or accompanying somebody else is a very difficult thing to do if you're not actually in the situation of playing behind somebody. But there are a few ways that you can think about what you're trying to achieve with the way that you comp, and that's going to help you make the right decisions when you're actually in that situation. And those are the things that I want to talk about in this video. Hi everybody, my name is Jens Larsen. If you ask somebody who's experienced with playing with other people and does a lot of gigs or jam sessions, I think they will tell you that comping is not about the voicings or the perfect voice leading or the exact right extensions all the time. It's really about something else. Of course, it's easier to make lessons on voicings, and I've already made a lot myself, and if you do a Google search, I'm sure you can find 1,000 free lessons on drop 2 voicings and stuff like that, and you need to check it out. But there's another thing about comping that's probably more important, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. Besides just playing the right chords, you also have a function as a comper. So you have to be aware of how you're supposed to comp in a given situation, and you do that by listening to the music, understanding the piece, and understanding the people that you're playing with. Another thing that you also have to be aware of is that there's a responsibility. So to serve the music and make sure that things don't go wrong, or that you play something that fits with whoever you're playing behind, you also have to make the right choices. The first thing I think we should look at are a few different ways of comping. In this example, I'm trying to convey the harmony of the song. So I'm really focusing on playing the chords where I'm playing long phrases, connecting them, having a decent idea behind what the melody is in the top notes, and in that way just create sort of this blanket of the harmony of the song, so you can clearly hear what the song is and what is going on. And the good thing about playing like this is that it's going to give the rhythm section, but also the soloist especially, a lot of room, and it's going to give them some freedom to sort of state what they want to do with it. And then that's also why you want to do this in the beginning of a solo, so you want to see where they're going to go, what do they feel like doing, and then we can go there. When I'm playing like this, I'm focusing on locking in with the rhythm section, conveying the groove, which is the rhythm. Then I'm going to be playing a lot more different chords. They're all going to be sort of more short notes. I'm not really sustaining a lot of chords. I'm playing a lot more 3-note and 2-note chords, and not so much sort of big voicings that have a lot of color to them. So, because if I'm anyway just playing short rhythmical ideas, then the idea is just to play something that's simpler to play. The ideas are very often riff-like. So I'm going to play stuff that repeats and develop like that. Keeping a rhythmical idea and making that important in the way that I try to make melodies. It is giving another kind of space to the one who's soloing over it, because if the groove is really solid, then you can do a lot of different things on top of it, and it makes it a lot more easy to log in and also play some 8-note lines, or play something that's really in the groove and get that to sound good. In that way, playing like this is something that can add a lot of energy to a piece, and it's definitely something that you want to explore. It's a huge part of what we consider mainstream jazz, because most of hard bop comping is really like this. Of course, playing with a backing track and where it's myself soloing and I'm comping is really synthetic, so it's maybe not the best example of how you use interaction when you're soloing. I think if you listen to, well, for me certainly the the live recordings with the Miles Davis Quintet where you hear Herbie Hancock comping Miles and George Coleman, or Miles and Wayne Shorter, are much better examples of this. Especially what you have to think about when you're trying to make interaction is actually not what you play, but it's what you shouldn't play. In this example, I'm trying to see if I can hit the gaps in what I played a little bit, or at least play something that's not conflicting with the melodic idea that's going on. Another thing you hear is that at some point in the solo I'm playing a little bit with a type of blues phrasing, and then I try to go that way as well with the comping. Not playing the exact same phrase, just playing something that's also conveying that feeling. If the soloist is already playing a complete line that is actually spelling out the changes, it's not going to add a whole lot if you put a chord under it, so you don't actually have to play that much. And if you listen to people that are also really good compers like Scofield and Jim Hall, they very often play like that. They're not always playing all the chords, trying to listen to what's happening around you and focusing on that. This is different from focusing really on the groove, because very often you will hear traditionally that people who are playing more in the groove are not really that interactive and are not paying too much attention to what is going on with the soloist. They're just giving them sort of a nice foundation to play on, a little bit like I'm playing the chords over here, and whatever you do in your solo over there is fine. I'm just going to give you something you can play over. But you also have some responsibilities when you're comping. So everybody in the band can be free in different ways while you're playing, and you have to be aware of how the other guys are playing. If the rhythm section is just sort of playing straight ahead and not really doing that much and just laying down the groove, then that means that your role might be to really spell out the harmony, but it can also be that your role is to add energy and to really set the mood of the piece and interact with the soloist to keep it interesting. So there are different ways of thinking about this. And I think probably one of the best ways to be aware of this and train your ability to do this is to start by listening. So you first need to recognize what is going on, and it makes sense to also think about what the role is of different people in the band on different albums. So if you're listening to the first Bill Evans records, like with Scott LaFaro and Paul Motian, then Bill Evans and Bill Evans and Scott LaFaro are a lot more free than Paul Motian, and Paul Motian is much more just laying down the foundation that these two guys can play on, and giving them all that freedom, because Scott LaFaro is never really playing the groove on those records. Another way of dividing that would be a lot of the time with the Miles Davis second quintet with Herbie and Tony Williams and Ron Carter. There, Ron Carter is the one holding down the fort and just laying down the groove for Herbie Hancock and Tony Williams to interpret and do all sorts of freaky stuff with, which is also what makes those records interesting to listen to. When you're comping, and actually when you're playing in general, you're trying to serve the music, and you have to keep that in mind as well. So you want to make the choice and play and comp in a way that's going to serve the music and make the whole band sound the best possible. That's really the goal. There can really be no other goal when you're doing this, because otherwise you might think you're showing off your fancy voicings or your hip polyrhythms, but really you're probably just ruining the atmosphere or the mood of the whole piece. And that's also something you really have to be aware of. So in that way, you kind of need to check your ego a bit at the door when you're comping, and really open your ears and try to connect with the rest of the band. But if you do that, that means that you can probably also do it when you're soloing, and that can give you a lot more freedom in terms of where your solo is going, because that's going to help you communicate other grooves to the drummer, or certain moods or certain reharmonizations to the piano player, because you're aware of what is clear for them, because you're comping yourself, you know how it feels. Very often when I'm listening to recordings of something like a quintet, like the Miles Davis Quintet, then the piano solo is probably going to be the one that's the most interesting, because when the piano player is soloing, he has the best connection with the drummer, and therefore the mood can change and more things can happen. We can go more places just because that connection was there already while they were playing behind the horn players. There was a lot of philosophy on comping and playing with other people. I think this is a really interesting topic, even if it's very difficult to make YouTube videos on it. So if you have thoughts on this, then I would love to hear them. I'm always open to learning more things about playing with other people, and of course also about comping. In the end, I, like most guitar players, probably make the biggest part of my living as a musician playing behind other people. Or at least I spend the most time doing it. So it is important, and I actually also find that it's really fun, because what I I get a kick out of most of the time is actually playing with other people, and especially locking in and going to interesting places with the rhythm section. So in that way, I think this is a very, very important topic. And I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So leave a comment if you have something to add, if there's something in terms of how you like to comp or how you like to be comped that you think might add to this discussion. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar, about chord voicings, comping, improvising over chord changes, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to make sure not to miss anything, then click the little bell notification icon next to the subscribe button. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. It's because of the support that I'm getting from my Patreons that I can keep on going and find the time to make these videos. And if you support me on Patreon, then I can also give you something in return for your support. That's about it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next week.